NBA free agency begins in just one day, and with exciting players coming into the Raptors, there are some impossible roster decisions to make. So in today's video, we're going to break down what those decisions might be and give you everything you need to know for 6 p.m. tomorrow. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans, it's Jacob here back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, and I'm going to be doing it all throughout the offseason, giving you the information that you need. So, if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel to keep up to date with all that great content, and you can help us on our road to 10,000 subscribers. Along the way, if you find yourself enjoying the video, be sure to drop a like as well. We want to hit 300 likes on today's video. I know we can do it, but let's get into our content for today. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, NBA free agency begins. It's one of the most exciting days of the year for basketball fans as players are coming into your team potentially. You're going to see what sort of moves your team is going to make as far as outgoing players goes. There's just so much action that's going to take place. And for a Toronto Raptors team coming off that 48-win season, very impressive. There are a lot of things that need to be addressed still. And with the roster right now, the construction, it's really not good enough. It's really not where we want it to be as far as depth goes. You know, we like the top five for sure. I mean, the top five in terms of the starters, that's very good for the Raptors. We do like, you know, what we have like 6, 7, 8 spots on our bench, but the 8 to 12 in the roster needs a lot of work, and the lower depth needs work, and you still need to address a lot of the concerns, you know, potentially with the G League, potentially with the two-way contracts, but everything that you're going to need to know ahead of that 6 p.m. time tomorrow is going to be addressed for today's video. Things became a little bit more complicated after the draft, of course. You know, the Raptors had a lot of players last season. I would say a pretty filled out roster in terms of talent, but it was very top heavy, and the talent was very minimal near the edges of the roster. Adding in Christian Koloko is certainly going to give us a boost, and we will kind of see what's going to happen with Ron Harper Jr. Time will tell as we see more of him in Summer League. But decisions, and some very difficult and impossible decisions, are going to need to be made by Masai, Ujiri, Bobby, Webster, and co. Because as we look at the current construction of the roster, there are 18 players you see in this list. Now, as far as I know, this is the current situation for the Raptors roster. Now, NBA teams are allowed to have 15 people on their main roster, plus 2 players on two-way contracts. Ultimately, you can have 17 players. For the offseason, for Summer League, Summer Camp, and all that, you're allowed 20 players, but you need to whittle it down before the NBA season begins. 18 players here, 17 spots available, and gotta be honest, this roster still needs work. So a lot of the players on this list at the moment are going to have problems maintaining that spot on the roster. I'm definitely looking at Svi Myhailiuk, who's guaranteed $1.9 million this season. I'm definitely looking at Malachi Flynn, who, you know, hasn't shown much since coming in as a rookie in the 2020 NBA entry draft. Some omissions you might see on this list, or might not see on this list, would be Yuta Watanabe and Isaac Bonga. Yuta Watanabe, if you don't know, I've seen a lot of Raptors fans online with a little bit of confusion. Yuta is a UFA. He's an unrestricted free agent. It's completely up to the Raptors. They want to bring him back. I'm sure Yuta would love to come back to the team. But ultimately, with so many players on this current roster, there may not be a spot available for him. We love Yuta. You know, we love the fact that we gave him the opportunity. But based on what we saw last season, is there a spot for him here? I'm not so sure. Bonga had a really good start to the season in the G League, but faded off very quickly. I was a season ticket holder for the 905. I went to every single home game except for one that I couldn't make. And yeah, I mean, near the end of the season, there wasn't a ton that would convince me that the Raptors want to bring back Bonga, so we'll also see what happens in that situation. The UFAs on this list are Chris Boucher and Thaddeus Young, who we do have the bird rights in order to keep. I imagine we are going to keep Chris Boucher. I think that's almost a definite thing. As far as Thaddeus Young, we will kind of see. I feel like the Raptors would want to have Thaddeus Young back, and I think Thaddeus Young would want to be here. It seems like a good situation for both parties. So if I were to bet on either side, I would say it's more likely to have Thaddeus Young back. As far as our RFAs go for Champagnie and for David Johnson, they were extended their qualifying offers, making them restricted free agents, and it's a no-brainer in my opinion to bring those guys back. More so Justin Champagnie, who did show some good things for the Raptors, and especially for the Raptors 9-5, the G League late in the season. Like, this guy was really developing as a shot creator and really developing as a knockdown three-point shooter. I can see him having a role with the Toronto Raptors next season. But with the makeup of the players in this list, obviously there's a lot of great stuff for the guaranteed contracts. You might need to look at extensions for Fred VanVleet, possibly an extension for Pascal Siakam in October, and possibly an extension at some point for Gary Trent Jr. Don't really think there's going to be any blockbuster trades being made for the Raptors, but certainly some things do need to be addressed for this team. Like, one of the biggest concerns going into the offseason was rim protection. Now, we did kind of address that in the draft by selecting Christian Koloko, who we talked about so much on this channel over the last week or so we don't need to go into a lot of that again here. But, is Christian Koloko necessarily NBA ready? We don't know yet, but it might be good to bring in somebody else who's a more assured NBA player at this point, give Koloko a bit more time to develop, maybe a bit of time in the G League to really hone his basketball talent to get ready for the NBA. We definitely need a better backup point guard. Like, if we go into this season with our point guard depth being Fred VanVleet, Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn, and Armani Brooks, I'm going to lose my mind, because Fred VanVleet cannot play 38 and a half minutes per game again all season. He just cannot sustain that. We need to give him some help. There are some free agents potentially like DeLon Wright who come into the team and make a little bit of a difference. We also need to address the lack of catch and shoot threat on our bench. Svi Myhailiuk was supposed to provide that, and he just opted into his contract for this season, which is $1.9 million. But we need better. We need somebody who's better than that. There isn't really a lot of reliance for me this season for Svi Myhailiuk. So I could very much see the Raptors just eating that $1.9 million. And if they find a better player or a younger player who has some more developmental skills, I don't see any problem in getting rid of him. Malachi Flynn's another one where that's one that could probably be gone next season. We will see what happens in the offseason. Armani Brooks as well is not safe. He's on that partial guarantee. I mean, the Raptors won't have a problem paying that. I believe it's somewhere in the low 100,000s, like 300, 400,000, something like that. Raptors have no problem paying that. If we find the right players, we are going to address the concerns of this roster. And at 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, there is a good opportunity to find some players. We'll kind of see what happens with the free agents. One free agent in particular that the Raptors may look at, now this doesn't address either any of those three areas that I just mentioned, but Lonnie Walker is expected not to be an RFA with the San Antonio Spurs. There was a really good opportunity for the Raptors to bring in a player like that. Like, Lonnie Walker on our bench would be great. We're a very top-heavy team, so adding in depth, again, in those 8 to 12 positions would be something I would definitely look at. And Lonnie Walker hasn't really developed the way the Spurs were expecting him to, but there still is talent there, and there is definitely talent that I think the Raptors could harness with him on the team. I think it'd be a great fit for the Raptors. I think it would be a great fit for the players. Ultimately, there's not a lot of guys I'm going into tomorrow thinking like the Raptors really need to go after this guy. Maybe a little bit looking at Lonnie Walker. Maybe also for myself looking at Malik Monk. He seems like he wants to stay in LA though. With the way he's talking, he can take a pay cut to stay with the Lakers. So that doesn't seem very likely for the Raptors. You go to the Clippers, Nick Batum. He's going to test the free agent market. That would be a very nice acquisition for the Raptors on their bench. Somebody who can come in and hit some three-pointers. Even be the fifth man in the starting lineup. I don't see that very likely, but Nick Batum's a good player. Had a good role for the Clippers over the last couple of seasons, and I think he performed the same role for the Raptors and do a good job at it. Maybe he's not the right archetype for the Raptors, but we need that sort of shooting threat, and Nick Batum is a good defender. There are players available that the Raptors can look at for this day. Last year for this, it was in August, the free agent day last year, free agent frenzy. That was when we were dealing with all the Kyle Lowry situation in the sign and trade, wondering what exactly a sign and trade was going to be. So it's not that eventful as last year for the Raptors, but there are certainly some things that are going to happen. Masai Ujiri knows that this team needs help. This team needs more players. This team needs better players. And I'm sure they're not going to rest on that 48-win season. We're going to want to go and win 50 games this season. Why not? We just won 48 in a season where we are more focused on, a transition year. Not necessarily rebuilding, but that was a focus on getting better. Yet we won 48 games. So in a season where we're actually going in expecting to win games, why not go for 50 games? But if we want to get there, there are a lot of areas of concern for this roster that need to be addressed, and it's all going to start tomorrow. You're going to think about which players can be sacrificed for your team. You're going to think about which players can be brought into your team, and ultimately, how are you going to put the best product out there on the court when the first game of the NBA season kicks off in a few months? Summer League is going to be a great spot to test some of the talent of the players available. Is Champagnie continuing to improve? Can he get himself within the regular roster for the Raptors again? Ron Harper Jr., can he lock down that two-way spot and be a very good player for the Raptors 9 to 5? Maybe a fringe fringe rotation player for the Raptors. I see the former as a much more likely, but this is where we're going to learn about all these players. Summer League is a great time for players to really show their skills. There were like zero expectations going into last year's Summer League about Justin Champagnie, yet every Raptors fan, it seemed, was just enamored with the player over the course of the first few games. Like, wow, this guy's actually really good. Like, where did he come from? Who is this guy? Earning himself a spot, especially earlier on in the season, as like kind of like a 9th or 10th man in rotation, getting a bunch of minutes, hitting threes, rebounding the ball very well, playing good defense. So there was plenty of opportunity, and especially for a Raptors team who had such a bad bench last year. A lot of these guys on the list are going to be fighting for a limited amount of positions. So it's all about showing up when the right time calls. But I would expect tomorrow to maybe not be as crazy as last year for the Raptors, but certainly a lot of stuff could happen, and it's going to be very interesting to see what sort of roster Masai, Ujiri, and Bobby Webster are going to try and put together. By the way, guys, tomorrow on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/amateursports, we're going to be live streaming for Free Agent Frenzy. I'm going to go live at 5:45 Eastern Time, 15 minutes before the Free Agent Frenzy kicks off at that 6 p.m. You can check the link in the description to follow the stream and get updates when we go live so you can hang out with us and I can break all the news down for you as it happens. But thank you so much for watching this video. Please drop a like if you did enjoy. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. When you drop a like, it lets YouTube know that there's other people out there who have similar interests to you who may also enjoy this video, and therefore the video is recommended to more people. It takes you a second to like the video, helps me out a ton. And make sure if you're one of those new people watching for the first time and you like the video, you subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports. We're on a road to 10,000 subscribers, and in return, I'm giving you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news all throughout the offseason. We had an absolutely crazy week for support. Thank you so much to everybody who supports Amateur Hour Sports. We got a ton of subscribers, a ton of views this week. I work really hard to put together all the draft content, and it's just very fulfilling to me to see all of the great support come in. I'm super grateful for you guys, so thank you so much. Keep supporting Amateur Hour Sports. I'm going to keep you guys entertained with this Raptors content. We'll see you again next time for another video.